Hello and welcome back to the F1 Journal. And what a crazy final lap that was, as Lewis Hamilton just beat Max Verstappen despite a last lap puncture. An incredible finish as Hamilton crosses the line 5 seconds ahead of Verstappen despite having a puncture, while Bottas drops out of the points entirely with a similar puncture, and Hamilton is now 30 points clear in the drivers' standings as Charles Leclerc came third. Lewis Hamilton limped across the line for a dramatic British Grand Prix victory ahead of Max Verstappen after a remarkable finish to the race, which saw dominant Mercedes suffer punches in the closing stages. Mercedes were in a league of their own before the last 3 laps of F1 Silverstone homecoming, but Valtteri Bottas' tyre blow-up was followed by race leader Hamilton's on the last lap in extraordinary scenes. The home favourite only just managed to drive his car across the finishing line. Hamilton lost so much time that Red Bull's distant third man Max Verstappen finished just 5 seconds behind him despite pitting late on. If they hadn't done so though, Verstappen would have undoubtedly taken a checker flag. In another boost to Hamilton, Bottas's puncture and forced pit stop dropped him out of the top 10 entirely, meaning the Englishman now has a 30-point lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship. I've definitely never experienced anything like that on the last lap. My heart nearly stopped, said Hamilton. I was just praying to get around and not be too slow. I nearly didn't get around the last few corners. A downbeat Bottas said, "It's of course very disappointing and unlucky." It was Hamilton's 7th Silverstone victory, and he is now just 4 wins off Michael Schumacher's all-time record of 91. Charles Leclerc finished an admirable third for Ferrari, his second podium of the season after the late drama, and Mercedes weren't the only team who provided it. McLaren also suffered a late puncture, with Carlos Sainz, who was running 5th for most of the race, following Bottas outside of the points. That lifted Daniel Ricciardo in the Renault up to 4th, and Britain's Lando Norris to 5th. Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly also benefited, while Alex Albon managed to finish 8th despite causing a collision for the first of 2 safety cars in the race, being handed a 5-second time penalty and stopping twice. Sky F1's Martin Brundle described the race as a slow burner with an extraordinary end. Despite a safety car on the first lap and fierce midfielding fighting throughout, it failed to ignite at the front before incredible closing laps. Hamilton held off Bottas from pole after 2 safety car restarts before engaging his teammate in a prolonged game of cat and mouse as he stayed out the DRS range for the whole race. Before then, it was lonely for Verstappen in third until the end. Out of nowhere, Verstappen started taking chunks of time out of Bottas. The advantage was big enough that the Finn may not have been too worried with so little time remaining, but his left front tyre started to shred after a puncture. Even worse for Bottas, he was nowhere near the pit, so had to watch Verstappen and indeed midfielded cars getting past him before getting back to his Mercedes crew. Some seemingly trying to alleviate their own tyre concerns while also chasing an extra fastest lap point. Red Bull responded by immediately pitting Verstappen, with Hamilton seeming cruising to a victory unopposed ahead. But then Hamilton reported similar front left issues to Bottas. Dramatically, he suffered a puncture himself early on in the final lap, with his gap to Verstappen more than half a minute before lap 52, dropping by every centimetre covered of the famous Silverstone circuit. The 6-time champion somehow kept his composure in changing settings on his steering wheel as he drove around with 3 inflated tyres. With another corner, let alone another lap, he would have likely lost his win. With hindsight, Red Bull may have kept Verstappen out, but as Christian Horner told Sky F1, they have very real reasons for pitting the Dutchman. With hindsight, Mercedes would have brought in Bottas, who desperately tried but failed to get back into the points on a frantic final lap. But no hindsight ultimately needed for Hamilton, who has taken a mighty step towards his 7th world title. While Mercedes were in a league of their own, out in the front for most of the race, behind them was a closely matched midfield that had plenty of battles. That started on lap 1 as Alex Albon inadvertently shunted the fast-starting Kevin Magnussen off the road at Woodcote for an early safety car, and after the second safety car, which was triggered by a huge crash for Daniel Kvyat at Beckett's. Behind the impressive Leclerc, McLaren and Renault were particularly feisty, with Ricciardo, Norris and Sainz all overtaking and re-overtaking each other. They also nearly had moments with Romain Grosjean in the Haas, who didn't stop after the safety car and was handed a black and white flag for his defensive manoeuvres. Surprisingly, not included in that aforementioned battle was Lance Stroll, who fought and eventually lost out to Esteban Ocon in the Renault and Sebastian Vettel, who struggled in his Ferrari. There was no fairy tale return for Nico Hulkenberg, whose rollercoaster collapsed this week, which saw him called up to replace the ruled out Sergio Perez on Thursday, fell flat on Sunday with his Racing Point car not starting due to an engine issue. He is set to go for another chance, however, when the F1 2020 season continues with another race at Silverstone next week for the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. And before I go, let me run you through the overall classification. Lewis Hamilton taking a nervy win for Mercedes, with Verstappen coming home in second. He'll be disappointed after that strategy blunder. Charles Leclerc in third, Ricciardo in fourth. One more lap, and I think Ricciardo could have got second. He was closing in on Leclerc at a fast rate of knots, and obviously would have overtaken Hamilton. He'll be happy with that. Norris probably will be as well, as will Ocon and Gasly. Albon, great recovery for him. Stroll will be disappointed, however, as will Vettel and Bottas. Russell as well, he'll be very happy. Sainz will be gutted after that last lap incidents. And then the remaining drivers who finished just don't seem to have the pace, with Kvyat, Magnussen and Hulkenberg all suffering early retirements. But anyway guys, that is it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you thought about this video and the British Grand Prix in the comments down below. Remember to follow me on Twitter, link in the description below, for daily F1 news. And subscribe to my other channels on screen right now. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for watching. Peace.